Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, November 11th. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. Happy Veterans Day to everybody out there. Today, we have a massive show. It is a big college football show today. We're going to go over our top 25 after another wild weekend where, once again, chaos reigns supreme, seeing two of the top 5 teams fall. One undefeated go down. A crazy weekend in college sports. We'll get into winners and losers as well as that top 25 before turning our attention to the NFL. Lots of storylines going in through there. Which coaches should be fired, might be fired. We'll take a look at the hot seat today, as well as some quarterbacks that might have started their last game and some quarterback controversies from around the league. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, November 11th. But like I was saying, we're going to start off our show, as always, like we do on Mondays, with our winners and losers from another crazy, wild Week 11 of college football. Starting off with our winners, and this one, there were a lot of winners. I had a little bit of a tough time whittling it down to just 5. Of course, we do our top 5, but starting at number 5, I had to go with one that made history. A win that made history at a program, and that's Indiana. Indiana is our number 5 winner of the week. Curt Cignetti has his team undefeated in the top 5 in the AP poll, made one of their highest rankings of all time. This is the best season in the history of Indiana. Indiana has never been 10-0 ever. They've beaten Michigan for just the second time in their history. They are rolling. They have a basically clear shot to the college football playoffs and a massive game coming up soon against Ohio State. This is going to be a top 5 matchup, which is insane to think about at the beginning of the season, what Indiana has been able to do, that quick turnaround. This is a historic season for Indiana, and it's very, very impressive how quickly they have been able to make their program into one of the premier ones in the country. Helps how chaotic this season has been, but Indiana, a top 5 team and a top 5 winner of Week 11. Number 4, our number 4 winner goes to Ole Miss. This is a team that I personally 2 weeks ago had counted out. They come into Arkansas and they demolish. They seem to have figured something out. Arkansas, a place that's tough, a place where Tennessee lost, a team that's ranked at number 6 in the AP poll currently. We'll see where they're ranked by the College Football Committee when that comes out tomorrow. But Ole Miss comes in and for the second week in a row dominates a team that at least I thought they would have a little bit of trouble with. Obviously, Arkansas is not at the same level of Georgia. Georgia is a much bigger beast, a top 5 team, a team that had not lost to anyone that wasn't named Alabama since COVID. This was a incredible win for this Ole Miss program. They lose Jackson Dart in the first series of the game to injury on an interception that he throws, and I saw that and I said, "Oh my goodness, this is it. Ole Miss is cooked." And after that, they played a near flawless game. Backup quarterback came in for a drive. He led them down the field. Then Jackson Dart came in. Didn't seem like he missed a beat. This was a absolutely dominant performance from Ole Miss. Offense, defense, special teams, all 3 units of the field. They came out there and they did their job, winning a massive game at home over a Georgia team that, kind of needed that win. This was a game that Ole Miss, if they had lost, would have been eliminated from playoff contention. They had their backs against the wall. They did what they needed to do against, again, a really talented Georgia team, one that gave Texas its only blemish on the year so far. They go out there, dominate, absolute domination. Ole Miss really showing why they were ranked so high earlier on in the season before suffering a couple of losses. At number 3, we have Colorado. Dion has his boys going. That was a tough game, and a lot of people don't realize how tough of an opponent Texas Tech is. Texas Tech has just come off of a win, spoiling the undefeated season of Iowa State. This is a really good Texas Tech squad, and we saw that. Despite how good, especially the defense of Colorado was playing, you saw Texas Tech jump out to an early 13-0 lead. That usually for a lot of different programs, and definitely for Colorado even last year, would have been a death sentence. Instead, Colorado comes out after that third straight scoring drive, and they shut it all down. They don't let them score for the rest of the half. Basically, this is an absolute masterclass in not getting down on yourself. It seems like nothing was going right for Colorado. It seemed like Texas Tech at home was rattling them with their tortillas. But then they come back on the road from a 13-point deficit, and they find a way to win by multiple scores. It got a little sketchy there at the end, but a scoop and score by that defense at the end, not to mention the other turnovers that they caused along the way, led to a very much needed victory, and that was the hardest game they have throughout the rest of the year. Colorado now has a very clear path to the playoff. They just need to win out, and then they're in. That was a massive performance from them. I don't know if they're a guarantee, but with that win, I think they have a better shot than not of making it to the college football playoff, especially with the way that BYU looked this week against a Utah team that had kind of been struggling. I know it is, a rivalry game in the Holy War over there, and that was a really, really fun game. One that I think BYU probably should have lost, regardless of that holding call or not. The way that they mismanaged their timeouts, especially at the end of that first half, was criminal. And I really love the way that Utah and their quarterback Rose came out and played, especially in the beginning of it. But this is not about BYU. This is about Colorado. Colorado showed me a lot of good, and they've been playing a lot of good all season long. I think they are the favorites to come out of the Big 12, and I think they beat that BYU team if it comes to it in a rematch. At number 2. Our number 2 winner is Clemson, and it might not seem like Clemson was a huge winner this week. They escape after a very poor performance, especially offensively, against Virginia Tech, a very, not consistent Virginia Tech team. They don't allow an offensive touchdown until garbage time. That defense showed me something that I haven't seen all season long against quality competition. Virginia Tech is not the level of a Louisville. Virginia Tech is not the level of a Georgia, the teams that have handed Clemson their 2 losses this season. But Virginia Tech is a solid football team. They're a team that could give you some trouble if you let them give you some trouble. And Clemson, after a loss, bounced back. And not only did they bounce back, but Pitt lost. So did Miami, which gives Clemson new life in the ACC race. They are not out of it yet. Now, obviously, the loss that they suffered definitely does not help to Louisville, but they are still very much in the ACC race after this week, and that is the biggest win for them, which is why they're on number 2, which is why they're ahead of Ole Miss, Colorado, and Indiana, because their playoff hopes were just saved by this week. And at number 1, how can you go about talking about this week without talking about Jalen Milroe? Jalen Milroe leads his boys, the Alabama Crimson Tide, into Death Valley at night, a place where LSU has been near undefeatable at night in Death Valley. In a rainy, ugly conditioned game, they dominate, and not just they, especially Jalen Milroe. 4 touchdowns on the ground for him, seemingly getting whatever he wanted, breaking off 70-yard runs, 40-yard runs, 20-yard runs. He looked like the biggest, the fastest, the strongest, and the best athlete on the field, on a field filled with plenty of future NFL players. That was a dominant performance that I had not seen out of Alabama all season long. Even in the game against Georgia, where they got their win and eventually got to that number 1 spot, They was not nearly as dominating as this. LSU did not score an offensive touchdown until garbage time at the very end, at the point where Alabama had backups in the game. That was as dominating as a victory and as big of a game as you possibly could, and Jalen Milroe played absolutely phenomenal. I thought that LSU defense might give him some fits. He's had some games where he's been inconsistent, but he came out there and he showed us why he and Alabama you just don't want to give life to. And that's something that this 12-team playoff has done. In a 4-team playoff, Georgia, Alabama are done. They're out of it. Really, it's kind of down to the undefeated teams in Oregon, to Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, and whatever undefeated team they want to throw in there next. But in a 12-team college football playoff, these dangerous teams that slipped up once or twice get a chance at it, which is why I love this extended playoffs, especially this year, the way that we're seeing it. This is a massive, massive win for college football, and Jalen Milroe, what he did in that game makes him the biggest winner of the week. Up next, we have our losers, of course. We're going to take a quick break before we get to it. Top 5 losers of the week coming up next. Make sure you stick around for that here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.